The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the Italian marble floor as I stood frozen in the doorway of our Beverly Hills mansion. What I witnessed would have been comical if it weren't happening to me, my husband Matthew, the renowned plastic surgeon who had built his empire on perfection, was sprawled across our white leather sofa with a woman who looked barely old enough to drink legally, her swollen belly pressed against his chest as they kissed passionately, completely oblivious to my presence. Today was our 12th wedding anniversary. The Cartier box in my hand, containing the vintage watch I'd spent months hunting down because he'd mentioned loving it once, suddenly felt as heavy as lead. The woman's platinum blonde hair cascaded over the arm of the sofa, the same sofa where Matthew and I had spent countless Sunday mornings reading the paper together. Her manicured hand, sporting a diamond tennis bracelet I didn't recognize, ran through his salt and pepper hair with a familiarity that made my stomach churn. I must have made a sound, perhaps a gasp, perhaps a whimper, because they suddenly broke apart. The woman, Tiffany as I would soon learn, didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. Instead, she smiled, a cat-like expression of triumph that made her look older than her 22 years. Matthew, however, went through a fascinating array of emotions: surprise, annoyance, and finally cold calculation. "Lauren," he said, straightening his tie as if we were meeting in his office rather than catching him in flagrant adultery. "You're home early." Early? It was 7 in the evening. I had texted him 3 times about our anniversary dinner reservations at Mastro's, his favorite steakhouse. The reservation I'd made 2 months in advance because he was always complaining we never went anywhere special anymore. "Happy anniversary to me," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. Tiffany stretched like a satisfied feline, making sure I got a good view of her baby bump under her designer crop top. "Oh, is today your anniversary? How awkward." Her voice was sugar-sweet poison. "Maddie, you didn't mention that." Maddie. In 12 years, I'd never called him Maddie. It was always Matthew, sometimes Matt when we were intimate, but never Maddie. That single nickname told me everything about how long this had been going on. "We need to talk," Matthew said, standing and helping Tiffany to her feet with a tenderness that twisted the knife deeper. "But first, meet Tiffany. She's pregnant with my child, my son." The words hung in the air like toxic smoke. My legs felt disconnected from my body, but somehow I remained standing. 8 years. 8 years of fertility treatments, 3 miscarriages, countless nights crying in bathroom stalls after negative tests, and he'd managed to knock up this child without even trying. "How long?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. 7 months, Tiffany supplied helpfully, rubbing her belly. "We met at the medical conference in Miami. I was working the Botox booth." She giggled. "Funny how life works out, isn't it? 7 months. I counted backward. March. When he'd told me he needed space to figure things out. When he'd suggested I visit my sister in Portland for a few weeks. When I'd returned, he'd seemed recommitted to our marriage, talking about fresh starts and new beginnings, all while his mistress was growing his child. "Lauren, let's discuss this rationally," Matthew said, using his doctor voice, the one he employed when delivering bad news to patients. "You're a practical woman. You've always been practical. Surely you can see that things haven't been working between us for a while." "Because you've been sleeping with a booth girl." The words exploded from me, years of refined composure cracking like thin ice. Tiffany's eyes flashed. "I'm a pharmaceutical sales representative, actually, and I graduated summa cum laude from USC. "Congratulations," I said acidly. "Did they teach you about sleeping with married men in your ethics class?" Matthew stepped between us, ever the mediator. "That's enough. Lauren, Tiffany will be moving in tomorrow. The baby needs stability, and I want to be involved from day one. I've already had the guest suite prepared for you. You can stay there until you find suitable accommodations." The room spun. "Excuse me?" "The guest suite," he repeated slowly, as if I were having trouble understanding basic English. "It's quite comfortable. I had Martha put fresh sheets on the bed." Martha, our housekeeper of 10 years, who I'd thought was loyal to me. Apparently everyone in my life had been keeping secrets. "You want me to move into the guest room while your pregnant mistress takes over my home?" I laughed, but it came out cracked and hysterical. "Have you completely lost your mind?" "Be reasonable, Lauren. Stress isn't good for the baby. Tiffany needs the master suite, it has the better bathroom, and she's having morning sickness. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. The master bathroom I had personally designed during our renovation 3 years ago, with its soaking tub and heated floors, perfect for the pregnancy I thought I'd eventually have. Now another woman would be throwing up in my custom marble toilet while carrying my husband's child. No, I said simply. Matthew's face darkened. He wasn't used to being defied. In his medical practice, his word was law. Nurses jumped when he called, and patients treated him like a god who could turn back time with a scalpel and some filler. No. No, I won't move into the guest suite. No, I won't play happy families with your mistress. And no, I won't be reasonable about any of this. Then you leave me no choice, he said, pulling out his phone. I'll have to call my lawyer. California is a community property state, but this house is in my name. A prenup is a beautiful thing, isn't it? You were so eager to sign it, so trusting. He smiled coldly. I can have you removed if necessary. The prenup. I remembered signing it, young and in love, certain we'd never need it. My parents had warned me, but I'd laughed them off. Who needed money when you had love? You bastard, I whispered. Such language, Tiffany tutted. Is this who you want around our son, Maddie? Someone so full of hate? Our son. Like I was already erased, already gone, already just a footnote in the grand story of Matthew and Tiffany. You have 1 hour to pack, Matthew said, checking his Rolex, a gift from me last Christmas. I've already arranged for a suite at the Four Seasons. I'm not heartless, Lauren. I'll cover it for a month while you get your affairs in order. I stood there in the foyer of the home I'd spent years making perfect, surrounded by the artwork I'd carefully curated and the furniture I'd lovingly selected, and realized I was being evicted from my own life. The man I'd loved, supported through medical school residency, through the stress of building his practice, was casting me aside like a used surgical glove. I'll pack, I said quietly. But Matthew, you're going to regret this. Both of you will. Tiffany laughed, a tinkling sound like breaking glass. Is that a threat? How dramatic. Maddie, she's threatening us. I'm sure Lauren is just emotional, Matthew said dismissively. She'll calm down once she's had time to process everything. Won't you, darling? Darling. The endearment was a final slap. I turned without another word and climbed the stairs to our bedroom, my former bedroom, my legs shaking with each step. Behind me, I heard Tiffany say, I can't wait to redecorate. This place needs some life, don't you think? It's so beige. Beige. She thought my carefully crafted neutral palette, inspired by the beaches of Santorini where Matthew and I had honeymooned, was beige. As I pulled out my suitcase's wedding gifts that had never been used because Matthew preferred to buy new clothes at our destinations, I heard them laughing below. The sound drifted up through the house like smoke from a funeral pyre, burning away 12 years of memories, dreams, and foolish, foolish love. 1 hour. I had 1 hour to pack up a life. But as I folded my clothes with mechanical precision, a strange calm settled over me. They thought they'd won. They thought I was beaten, broken, finished. They had no idea what was coming. The Four Seasons Beverly Hills was supposed to be luxury, but the opulent suite felt more like a padded cell. For 5 days, I'd been living in a haze of room service trays I didn't touch and pay-per-view movies I didn't watch. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of Los Angeles, but all I could see was the life I'd lost sprawling out below me like a glittering mockery. My phone buzzed constantly with messages I couldn't bring myself to read. The word had spread through our social circle with the efficiency of a virus. Lauren Chen Winters, the perfect doctor's wife, had been replaced by a younger model. A pregnant younger model. The schadenfreude must have been delicious for some of them. I'd turned off my social media after seeing the first post. Matthew and Tiffany at Spago, her bump prominently displayed in a tight dress, his hand possessively on her lower back. The caption read, Celebrating new beginnings with my baby daddy. Blessed baby on board, new chapter. Baby daddy. My husband of 12 years had been reduced to millennial slang by a girl who probably still got carded at bars. The hotel phone rang, jarring me from my stupor. I'd been ignoring it along with my cell, but the concierge was persistent. Mrs. Winters, there's a gentleman here to see you. "A Mr. Anthony Chen. He says he's your brother." Anthony. I'd been dodging his calls along with everyone else's. "Send him up," I said, resigned. If anyone could penetrate my fortress of self-pity, it would be my older brother. 5 minutes later, Anthony burst through the door like an avenging angel in an Armani suit. He took one look at me, unwashed hair, the same hotel robe I'd been wearing for 2 days, empty wine bottles on the nightstand, and his face darkened. "I'm going to kill him," he said simply. "Get in line," I muttered. Anthony crossed the room and pulled me into a fierce hug. I tried to resist, but his familiar cologne, the same one he'd worn since college, broke through my defenses. The tears came then, hot and ugly, soaking through his expensive shirt. "I know," he murmured. "I know, Lulu. Let it out." Lulu. He hadn't called me that since we were kids. The childhood nickname made me cry harder. When the storm finally passed, he handed me a tissue and surveyed the suite with disgust. "This is pathetic. You're Lauren Chen. You don't hide in hotel rooms. You fight back." "With what?" I laughed bitterly. "He has everything, Tony. The house, the money, the practice. I have a prenup that gives me basically nothing and a skill set that involves organizing charity galas and looking good in designer dresses." "You have a Harvard MBA, he reminded me, that I haven't used in a decade because Matthew wanted a traditional wife. I flopped back on the bed. Do you know what he said when I suggested going back to work 5 years ago? That it would look bad for his image if his wife needed to work. That people would think his practice wasn't successful. Anthony's jaw clenched. He'd never liked Matthew, had warned me about him from the beginning. The surgeon had been too smooth, too calculated, too focused on appearances, but I'd been 23 and dazzled by the older, sophisticated doctor who'd pursued me with laser focus. "Listen," Anthony said, pulling up a chair. "I've been doing some digging. That prenup might not be as ironclad as he thinks. And there are irregularities in his practice's finances." I sat up. "What kind of irregularities?" "The kind that the IRS and medical board might find very interesting. But we'll get to that. First, you need to get out of this room and remember who you are." "I know who I am," I said miserably. "I'm the discarded wife whose husband knocked up a sales rep at a medical conference." "No." Anthony's voice was sharp. "You're Lauren Chen. You graduated top of our class at Harvard. You ran a nonprofit that raised millions for children's health care. You speak 4 languages. You're not going to let some narcissistic scalpel jockey and his booth bimbo define you." "Pharmaceutical sales representative," I corrected automatically. "She graduated summa cum laude from USC. "I don't care if she graduated from MIT. She's still a homewrecker, and he's still a bastard." He stood, pulling me up with him. "Get dressed. We're going out." "Tony, I can't. Everyone knows. Exactly. Everyone knows. So you're going to show them that you're not broken. You're going to walk into the Beverly Hills Hotel for lunch with your head high, and you're going to look so good that every woman there will wonder what Matthew was thinking." An hour later, after Anthony had bullied me into showering and changing into one of the designer dresses I'd grabbed during my frantic packing, we walked into the Polo Lounge. The famous restaurant was packed with the usual mix of Hollywood power players and Beverly Hills society. Heads turned as we entered. I felt the weight of their stares, heard the whispers start, but Anthony's steady presence beside me kept me moving forward. We were the Chen siblings, old money from San Francisco, educated, polished, and not to be trifled with. "Lauren, Lauren, darling." I turned to see Rebecca Hartman gliding toward us, her perfectly Botoxed face a mask of concern. Rebecca was the queen bee of Beverly Hills society, the woman whose approval could make or break you. She was also Matthew's patient, which made this encounter particularly loaded. "Rebecca," I said, forcing a smile. She air-kissed me, her critical eyes taking in every detail of my appearance. "Darling, I heard about." "Well, everyone's heard. How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I lied smoothly. "Of course you are." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "You know, I never liked that little Tiffany. So pushy at those medical events. Always hanging around the married doctors." She paused dramatically. "I heard she was also very friendly with Dr. Morrison before she set her sights on Matthew." This was new information. Dr. Morrison was Matthew's partner at the practice, another successful plastic surgeon with a taste for younger women, despite his long-suffering wife. "Really?" I said, filing this away. "Oh, yes. But Morrison wasn't interested. His wife keeps him on a short leash after that incident with the nurse." Rebecca's eyes glittered with malicious delight. Tiffany moved on to bigger fish. "Your Matthew was always so, susceptible to flattery." Anthony stepped in smoothly. "Ladies, if you'll excuse us, our table is ready." As we walked away, Rebecca called out, "Lauren, if you need anything at all, you just call me. Us girls have to stick together." Us girls. As if Rebecca Hartman had ever stuck by anyone who couldn't benefit her somehow. But her gossip about Tiffany was interesting. Very interesting. Over lunch, where I managed to choke down half a Caesar salad, Anthony laid out his discoveries. It seemed my brilliant surgeon husband had been playing fast and loose with insurance billing, charging for procedures that were never performed and pocketing the difference. He'd also been writing prescriptions for pain medications at an alarming rate, prescriptions that seemed to end up in the hands of certain wealthy clients who had no medical need for them. "How did you find all this?" I asked, stunned. Anthony smiled grimly. "I have my sources. The question is, what do you want to do with it?" What did I want? Part of me wanted to destroy him, to watch his precious practice crumble and his reputation turn to ash. But another part, the part that had loved him for 12 years, hesitated. "I need to think," I said. "Well, think fast," Anthony warned. "He's already filed for divorce, claims irreconcilable differences and wants to fast-track it. My guess is he wants you gone before the baby arrives." Before the baby arrives. The son I couldn't give him, growing in another woman's body. As we finished lunch, a shadow fell across our table. I looked up to see a man I recognized but couldn't quite place. Tall, early 40s, with prematurely silver hair and intense green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Miss Chen, I apologize for interrupting. I'm Joshua Blackstone." The name hit me like a thunderbolt. Joshua Blackstone, the tech billionaire who'd revolutionized online payment systems before moving into venture capital. He was notoriously private, rarely seen at social events, and definitely not someone who approached strangers at lunch. "Mr. Blackstone," I said, confused. "How can I help you?" He smiled, and it transformed his serious face. "Actually, I was hoping I could help you. I have a business proposition that might interest you. Would you be willing to meet with me? Perhaps tomorrow?" Anthony tensed beside me, protective instincts on high alert. "What kind of proposition?" Joshua handed me a business card, simple, elegant, expensive. The kind that could change Miss Chen's current circumstances significantly. "I've been following your work with the Children's Health Foundation. Your fundraising strategies were innovative. I could use someone with your skills." He was offering me a job? Now? When my life was falling apart and my reputation was in tatters? "I'll think about it," I said carefully. "Please do." He nodded to Anthony, then back to me. "Sometimes the best revenge is massive success, Miss Chen. I'll have my assistant call to schedule a meeting." As he walked away, Rebecca Hartman materialized at our table again, eyes wide. "Do you know who that was?" she hissed. "Joshua Blackstone! He's worth billions! And he's single!" Single. As if that mattered. As if I could even think about another man when my marriage was still warm in its grave. But as we left the restaurant, Joshua's card burning a hole in my purse, I couldn't help but wonder, what did a billionaire tech mogul want with a discarded doctor's wife? And more importantly, what did I have to lose by finding out? Joshua Blackstone's office occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming tower in Century City. The elevator ride up felt like ascending to another world, one where marriages didn't implode and pregnant mistresses didn't steal your life. His assistant, an efficient woman named Sarah, led me through halls lined with modern art that probably cost more than my entire divorce settlement. "Mr. Blackstone will see you now," she said, opening massive double doors. The office was magnificent but understated floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Los Angeles, minimalist furniture that screamed expensive, and technology seamlessly integrated into every surface. Joshua stood behind a glass desk, his back to me as he gazed out at the city. "Thank you for coming, Miss Chen," he said without turning around. "Tell me, what do you see when you look out there?" I moved closer to the windows, unsure what game we were playing. Los Angeles? Opportunity, he corrected, finally facing me. In daylight, his green eyes were even more striking, intelligent, and calculating, but not cold. Millions of people, thousands of businesses, endless possibilities. Yet most people only see the traffic. Is this a job interview? I asked. Because I should warn you, my resume has a 12-year gap. I know exactly what you've been doing for 12 years, he said, gesturing for me to sit. You've been managing charity events that raised over $30 million. You've been networking with the most powerful people in Southern California. You've been the perfect corporate wife, which requires skills most CEOs would kill for. He'd done his homework. I settled into the leather chair across from his desk, intrigued despite myself. The question is, he continued, are you ready to be more than someone's wife? The words stung, but they were fair. What exactly are you offering, Mr. Blackstone? Joshua, please. He pulled up something on his tablet, then turned it toward me. I'm launching a new venture, a lifestyle brand aimed at professional women. Fashion, wellness, technology, everything the modern woman needs to succeed. I need someone to run the charitable arm. Someone who understands both worlds. You want me to run a charity? I want you to build one from the ground up. Full autonomy, generous budget, and a salary that would make your ex-husband weep. He named a figure that made me blink. It was more than Matthew made in a year. Why me? I asked suspiciously. There are hundreds of qualified people who'd kill for this job. Joshua leaned back, studying me with those unsettling green eyes. Because you're hungry. Because you have something to prove. And because... He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Because I believe in investing in people at their lowest point. They tend to be the most motivated to succeed. So I'm a charity case? You're an opportunity, he corrected. One I'd be foolish to pass up. He stood, moving to a side table where a coffee service waited. Can I ask you something personal? More personal than offering me a job because my husband left me for a younger woman? He smiled at that, a genuine expression that made him look younger. Fair point. I was going to ask what you really want. Not the polite answer you'd give at a cocktail party, but the truth. I accepted the coffee he offered, perfectly made, exactly how I liked it. Either he was psychic, or he'd done even more research than I thought. I want my life back, I said honestly. No, that's not right. I want a better life. I want to matter again. I paused, surprised by the words that came next. I want Matthew to realize he threw away a diamond for a piece of glass. Vindictive. I like it. Joshua returned to his chair. Here's what I propose. You come work for me. Build something extraordinary. In 6 months, you'll be running charity galas that make your old events look like bake sales. Your ex-husband and his child bride will be begging for invitations they'll never receive. You make it sound easy. Oh, it won't be easy. I'm a demanding boss. I expect excellence, long hours, and absolute dedication, but I also reward success generously. He leaned forward. I've watched Matthew Winters for years. Arrogant, sloppy, convinced his medical degree makes him untouchable. Men like that always fall, Lauren. The question is whether you want to be there to watch. There was something in his tone, a personal edge that made me curious. You know Matthew? We've crossed paths. His expression darkened. He botched a procedure on someone I cared about, charged a fortune, delivered subpar results, then tried to blame the patient when complications arose. I've been waiting for the right opportunity to return the favor. And I'm that opportunity? You're part of it. He slid a contract across the desk. Think about it. Take your time. But Lauren, this offer won't stay open indefinitely. I picked up the contract, scanning the terms. The salary was even higher than he'd mentioned, plus benefits that made my eyes widen. Stock options, a car allowance, an expense account. It was the kind of package reserved for suite executives, not charity directors. This is generous, I said carefully. I believe in paying for quality, and despite what your ex-husband thinks, you're quality. He stood, signaling the meeting was ending. Sarah will validate your parking. Take the weekend to decide. As I reached the door, I turned back. Can I ask you something? He nodded. Why were you really at the Polo Lounge yesterday? You don't strike me as someone who does lunch there. A ghost of a smile played at his lips. I own the hotel. I like to check on my investments personally sometimes. He paused. And I may have heard that Lauren Chen Winters was finally free of the albatross around her neck. You've been watching me? I've been watching him, Joshua corrected. You were just the most interesting thing in his orbit. Now you're free to be interesting on your own terms. I left his office with my head spinning. The elevator ride down felt like descending from Olympus back to the mortal world. In the parking garage, I sat in my car, the sensible Lexus that Matthew had deemed appropriate for a doctor's wife, and stared at the contract. My phone buzzed. Another text from Matthew's lawyer. The divorce papers had been filed. I had 30 days to respond. 30 days to accept his insulting offer or fight a battle I'd probably lose. I looked up at the towering building, at the top floor where Joshua Blackstone was probably already onto his next meeting, his next acquisition, his next strategic move, or I could play a different game entirely. That evening, I met Anthony at a quiet restaurant in Brentwood, far from the Beverly Hills scene. I told him about Joshua's offer, expecting skepticism. Instead, my brother looked thoughtful. Joshua Blackstone, he mused. Interesting. Did you know he tried to buy Matthew's practice 2 years ago? I nearly choked on my wine. What? Through a holdings company. Offered 3 times what it was worth. Matthew turned him down flat, said he'd never sell to new money tech trash. Anthony smiled grimly. Blackstone doesn't forget slights like that. So this is about revenge? He's using me to get at Matthew? Maybe. Or maybe he sees a good investment. You ran those charities brilliantly, Lauren. Just because Matthew never valued that doesn't mean others didn't notice. My phone rang. Matthew's ringtone, I still hadn't changed it. Against my better judgment, I answered. Lauren? Finally. My lawyer says you haven't responded to the filing. It's been 2 days, Matthew. Yes, well, time is of the essence. Tiffany's due date is approaching, and I'd like this settled before my son arrives. My son. Not our son. Not the son. My son. As if he'd created this child through immaculate conception. I've been busy, I said coolly. He laughed, that condescending chuckle I'd once found charming. Busy? Doing what? Shopping? Getting your nails done? Come on, Lauren. Sign the papers. Take the settlement. Move on with your life. Actually, I've been considering a job offer. Silence. Then, a job? You? Who would hire you? Joshua Blackstone. The silence stretched longer this time. When Matthew spoke again, his voice had lost its smugness. Blackstone? What does he want with you? Apparently he values my skills. Imagine that. Lauren, listen to me. Blackstone is bad news. He's vindictive, ruthless. Pot, meat kettle, I interrupted. I'm serious. Whatever he's offering, it's not worth it. He's using you to get to me. Everything isn't about you, Matthew. Maybe he just recognizes talent when he sees it. Talent? Matthew's voice turned cruel. What talent? Planning parties? Choosing flower arrangements? You're a trophy wife, Lauren. That's all you've ever been good at. The words should have hurt. A week ago, they would have destroyed me. But sitting across from Anthony, with Joshua's contract in my purse and a strange new fire building in my chest, they just made me angry. You're right, I said calmly. I was a trophy wife. Your trophy. And you just threw me in the trash for a newer model. So don't be surprised when someone else decides I'm worth polishing up. I hung up before he could respond. Across the table, Anthony raised his glass in a mock toast. To new beginnings, he said. I clinked my glass against his, decision made. To revenge served at exactly the right temperature. The next morning, I called Joshua Blackstone's office. Tell Mr. Blackstone I accept his offer, I told Sarah. When do I start? Monday, she replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Welcome to Blackstone Industries, Miss Chen. This is going to be very interesting. Interesting. That was one word for it. As I hung up, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a photo. Matthew and Tiffany at a baby store, her holding up a onesie that said, Daddy's Little Champion. The message underneath read, Thought you should see what you're missing out on. T. I stared at the photo for a long moment, then deleted it. Tiffany thought she'd won. Matthew thought he'd discarded me like medical waste. They were both about to learn how wrong they were. Monday morning arrived with the kind of perfect Los Angeles weather that made the city's darkness easier to hide. I stood in front of my hotel closet, surveying my wardrobe with new eyes. The soft, elegant dresses that Matthew had preferred feminine but not flashy, he'd always said suddenly looked like costumes from someone else's life. I reached for a sharp black suit I'd bought years ago but never worn. Matthew had deemed it too aggressive for a doctor's wife. Perfect, then, for Joshua Blackstone's newest executive. The Blackstone Industries building looked different in the morning light, more fortress than office tower. I badged in with my new credentials, the security guard offering a respectful nod. "Good morning, Miss Chen." "Mister, Blackstone is expecting you." This time, Sarah led me to a different floor, my floor, as it turned out. An entire division dedicated to the new venture, already staffed with a small team waiting to meet their new director. "Your office," Sarah said, opening a door to reveal a space that took my breath away. Not as grand as Joshua's penthouse suite, but impressive enough. The same spectacular views, the same minimalist elegance, but with touches that felt personally chosen, a reading nook by the window, fresh orchids on the desk, and notably, a fully stocked bar cart. "Mr. Blackstone thought you might need fortification occasionally," Sarah explained with a knowing smile. Joshua appeared in the doorway, casual in jeans and a black sweater that probably cost more than most people's rent. It was jarring seeing him dressed down. He looked younger, less intimidating, almost approachable. "Settling in?" he asked. "It's perfect. Maybe too perfect. What's the catch?" He smiled. "The catch is that I expect you to fill this office with success. The charity gala season starts in 3 months. I want our launch event to be the one everyone talks about." "That's ambitious. These things usually take 6 months minimum to plan properly." "Then it's a good thing I hired someone who doesn't do things the usual way." He moved to the window, hands in his pockets. "I've already secured a venue, the Getty, black tie, 500 guests, minimum donation of 10,000 to attend." I whistled. That's A-list territory. Those people don't just show up for new charities. They do when the cause is right, and when the host is compelling enough." He turned back to me. "I want you to make this about empowering women after life changes. Divorce, death, disease, the 3 Ds that derail lives. We're creating a foundation that helps women rebuild." The irony wasn't lost on me. Speaking from experience? Speaking to experience. Yours, specifically. You'll be the face of this campaign. The woman who refused to be diminished by divorce. He must have seen my expression because he held up a hand. "Only if you're comfortable with it. But Lauren, your story is powerful. Use it." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled a sharp, predatory expression that made me glad I wasn't on the receiving end. "Interesting. It seems your ex-husband is having some trouble with his morning surgery. His best anesthesiologist just quit, the 3rd one this month." "That's unusual." "Very. Almost as if someone's been recruiting them away with better offers." He pocketed his phone. "Shall we meet your team?" The next few hours were a whirlwind of introductions, presentations, and strategic planning. My team was small but impressive, a mix of seasoned professionals and hungry young talent, all hand-picked by Joshua. By lunch, my head was spinning with possibilities. "Take a break," Joshua suggested, appearing at my office door. "I have a lunch meeting you might find interesting." We rode down in his private elevator. Of course, he had a private elevator to the executive garage where his Tesla waited. "Where are we going?" "The Beverly Hills Hotel. I have a standing lunch reservation on Mondays." The same place where he'd first approached me. I was beginning to understand that nothing Joshua did was coincidental. The Polo Lounge was buzzing with its usual crowd when we arrived. Heads turned as we entered. Joshua Blackstone didn't usually dine with companions, and certainly not female ones. I could feel the speculation crackling through the air like electricity. Our table was perfectly positioned, visible to everyone while maintaining an air of privacy. We'd barely ordered when I saw them. Rebecca Hartman holding court at a corner table with several other society women. She caught my eye and immediately excused herself, making a beeline for us. "Lauren, how wonderful to see you looking so well." Her eyes darted between Joshua and me, calculations visible behind her Botox-smooth forehead. "And Mr. Blackstone, what a pleasure. I don't think I've ever seen you here for lunch." "Miss Hartman," Joshua acknowledged coolly. "I've recently discovered the appeal of a proper lunch hour. Lauren's been educating me on the benefits of stepping away from the office." "Has she?" Rebecca's smile sharpened. "How lovely that you two have found common ground. Lauren, you must tell me about this new position everyone's buzzing about." Everyone was buzzing? It had been exactly 4 hours since I'd started. "It's very exciting," I said carefully. "Joshua's launching a new charitable foundation. We'll be announcing details soon." "A charity? How perfect for you, darling. You always did have such a gift for those things." She leaned in conspiratorially. "Though I must say Matthew seemed quite put out when he heard. He was at the club yesterday, going on about corporate raiders and stolen employees." "Stolen?" Joshua's voice was silk over steel. "I wasn't aware people could be stolen. I thought they chose where to work based on merit and opportunity." Rebecca backpedaled quickly. Of course. Just repeating gossip, you know how it is." She touched my arm. "Lauren, darling, you must come to my garden party next month. Everyone will be dying to hear about your new adventure." After she fluttered away, I turned to Joshua. "Did you really hire Matthew's anesthesiologist?" "3 of them, actually. They were underpaid and underappreciated. I simply offered them what they were worth." He sipped his water. "Your ex has a tendency to undervalue the people around him. It's a weakness." "This is about more than just business rivalry, isn't it?" He was quiet for a moment then. 5 years ago, my sister went to Matthew for a rhinoplasty. Simple procedure, she just wanted a small bump removed. He convinced her she needed a complete facial overhaul, nose, lips, cheeks, the works. She was 23, vulnerable, trusting. My stomach clenched. What happened? He botched it. Badly. She needed 4 corrective surgeries with a real surgeon to fix the damage. The emotional scars took longer to heal. His green eyes were glacial. When she complained, he threatened to sue her for defamation. Said she'd signed consent forms, that any complications were her own fault for not following post-op instructions. My God, I had no idea. Because he buried it, paid her off eventually with a non-disclosure agreement. She took the money because she was young and scared and wanted it to go away. He met my eyes. "So yes, this is personal, but it's also justice. Your ex-husband has hurt too many people for too long. I'm simply ensuring he faces consequences." Our food arrived, but I'd lost my appetite. How many stories like this were there? How many people had Matthew hurt while I played the perfect wife, oblivious to the damage he was causing? "Hey." Joshua's voice was gentler. "This isn't your fault. You didn't know. But I should have. I was married to him for 12 years. How did I not see what he was?" "Because he's good at hiding it. And because you wanted to see the best in him. That's not a flaw, Lauren. That's humanity." I was saved from responding by my phone buzzing, a text from an unknown number, but I recognized the writing style immediately. "Having lunch with the enemy? Careful, Lauren. Blackstone's not interested in you. He's using you to get to me. Don't be more of a fool than you already are." M. Joshua read it over my shoulder. Apparently personal space wasn't a thing with him, and laughed. "He's scared. Good. Should I be worried? About being used, I mean?" He considered this seriously. "Yes and no. Am I using our association to unsettle Matthew? Absolutely. But am I also genuinely impressed by your abilities and committed to your success? Also, absolutely. The two aren't mutually exclusive. At least you're honest about it. I'm always honest. It's why I'm successful. People waste so much energy on lies and pretense." He signaled for the check. "For instance, your ex is about to discover that his pregnant girlfriend has been less than honest about her past." "What do you mean?" "Patience. Some revelations are better served fresh." He stood, offering me his hand. "Come, let's go make your ex-husband's afternoon a little more interesting." As we left the restaurant, I caught a glimpse of Rebecca furiously typing on her phone. By evening, all of Beverly Hills would know that Lauren Chen Winters had been lunching intimately with Joshua Blackstone. Good. Let them talk. Let Matthew hear about it secondhand. Let him wonder and worry and rage. Because Joshua was right about one thing, I was done being diminished. The war had officially begun. 3 weeks into my new life, I was finally hitting my stride. The charity foundation was taking shape faster than I'd dreamed possible. My team was exceeding every expectation, and I'd managed to go entire hours without thinking about Matthew and his pregnant mistress. Then Tiffany decided to visit me at work. I was reviewing vendor proposals when Sarah knocked. "Miss Chen, there's a Tiffany Morrison here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent." "Morrison? Not Winters? Interesting." "Send her in," I said, curiosity overcoming caution. Tiffany waddled in. There was no other word for it. Her pregnancy had advanced considerably in the weeks since I'd seen her, and her designer dress strained across her belly. Her face was puffy, her ankles swollen, and her platinum hair showed dark roots. Pregnancy was clearly not agreeing with her. "Nice office," she said, lowering herself carefully into a chair. "Bigger than Maddie's." "What can I do for you, Tiffany?" I kept my voice professionally neutral. She shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to talk. Woman to woman. "We're not friends, Tiffany. We're not even acquaintances. You slept with my husband and destroyed my marriage." "I didn't destroy anything," she snapped, then visibly collected herself. "Look, I know you hate me, but I need to know, how did you do it? The pregnancy thing? Because Maddie's being difficult." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "He keeps pushing these prenatal vitamins on me, scheduling extra appointments, monitoring everything I eat. He even hired a nutritionist. It's like he's obsessed with this baby being perfect." She rubbed her belly. "I mean, I get it. After all those years of you not giving him a son." "Stop!" I held up a hand. "First of all, I didn't not give him anything. Fertility issues are medical, not personal failures. Second, what exactly are you asking me?" She leaned forward, and for the first time I saw something like fear in her eyes. "Did he do this to you? The constant pressure, the monitoring, the expectations?" I thought back to those years of fertility treatments, the rigid schedules, the hormone shots, the endless tests, Matthew's growing frustration with each failed attempt, as if my body was deliberately betraying him. "Yes," I said quietly. "He did. It's exhausting," she confessed. "And we're not even married yet. He keeps pushing the wedding back, saying we need to focus on the baby first. But my friends think—" She trailed off. "Your friends think what?" "That he's not going to marry me. That once he has his son, he won't need me anymore." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Is that crazy?" I should have felt satisfied seeing her distress. Should have enjoyed watching karma catch up with the woman who'd stolen my life. Instead, I felt an unexpected wave of pity. She was 22 years old, pregnant, and just beginning to understand the man she'd tied herself to. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Why Morrison? That's not Matthew's last name." She flushed. It's my married name. I'm technically still married. My divorce isn't final yet." The floor seemed to tilt. "You're married?" "Separated," she said quickly. "Brian and I have been separated for almost a year. The divorce is just taking forever because of property disputes." "Does Matthew know?" Her silence was answer enough. "Oh, Tiffany," I breathed. "You have no idea what you've done." Before she could respond, my office door burst open. Joshua stood there, eyes bright with what I was beginning to recognize as his victory look. "Lauren, I need—" He stopped, taking in Tiffany's presence. "Miss Morrison, what an unexpected pleasure." Tiffany went pale. "You know who I am? I make it my business to know interesting people." He smiled, shark-like. "For instance, I know your husband Brian has been looking for you. Something about missed court dates?" She struggled to her feet. "I should go." "Yes," Joshua agreed pleasantly. "You should. But Tiffany, you might want to talk to a lawyer. A real one, not Matthew's golf buddy, because when he finds out you're still married carrying another man's child—" He trailed off meaningfully. After she fled, I turned to Joshua. "How long have you known?" "Since the beginning. I told you. I research everything." He settled into the chair Tiffany had vacated. "Her husband's been trying to serve her divorce papers for months. She's been dodging them because she wants alimony, and getting pregnant with another man's baby would void that claim. So Matthew's son might not legally be his son at all. California law is tricky about paternity when the mother is still married to someone else." His smile widened. "I may have made sure Brian Morrison's lawyer has her current address." "You're terrifying," I said. not entirely disapprovingly. I'm thorough. There's a difference. He leaned back. But that's not why I'm here. The vendor list for the gala, I have some additions. We spent the next hour going over details, but my mind kept drifting to Tiffany's visit. The fear in her eyes, the growing realization that she'd traded one cage for another. Had I looked like that once? Young and scared and beginning to understand that Prince Charming was actually the villain? You're distracted, Joshua observed. I feel sorry for her, I admitted. I know I shouldn't, but you see yourself in her. Young woman, older, successful man, the promise of a perfect life that turns into a perfect prison. He studied me. The difference is you got out. She's just getting started. She's pregnant. It's harder to leave when there's a baby. Is it? His voice was carefully neutral. Or does it make it more necessary? Before I could answer, my phone exploded with notifications. Texts, calls, emails, all at once. I grabbed it, heart racing, and saw Anthony's name. Turn on Channel 7, his text read. Now. Joshua was already pulling up the news on his tablet. The headline made my blood run cold. Prominent Beverly Hills surgeon arrested in prescription drug sting. There was Matthew, being led out of his practice in handcuffs. His perfect hair was mussed, his designer suit wrinkled, and his face, the face that had smiled so coldly as he threw me out, was twisted in rage and disbelief. The timing of this is remarkable, I said faintly. Joshua's expression was innocent. Too innocent. Indeed, what are the odds? You did this. I did nothing. If Matthew was illegally distributing prescription drugs, that's on him. I simply may have ensured the authorities had all the relevant information they needed. The news report continued. Apparently, Matthew had been selling prescriptions for opioids to wealthy clients, using his practice as a front. The investigation had been ongoing for months, but a recent tip had provided the final evidence needed for arrest. My phone rang. Rebecca Hartman, of course. Lauren, have you seen? Matthew's been arrested. The FBI raided his practice. They're saying drugs, money laundering, insurance fraud. I saw, I said calmly. But darling, how awful for you. To find out your ex-husband was a criminal. Although, her voice dropped conspiratorially, I always suspected something. He was too smooth, too perfect. And that little gold digger of his, she must be beside herself. No more gravy train. I made appropriate noises and ended the call as quickly as possible. Joshua was watching me with an unreadable expression. You're angry, he observed. I'm processing. This is really happening. Matthew's going to prison. Most likely. The evidence is overwhelming. He paused. Does that bother you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. The man I'd loved, the man I'd built my life around was being destroyed. And I felt relieved, free, maybe even a little satisfied. No, I said finally. It doesn't. He made his choices. Yes, he did. Joshua stood, straightening his jacket. The gala planning meeting is at 3. Try to focus on that, not on your ex-husband's impending downfall. Is that possible? It better be. We have 200 confirmed guests already, including 3 Fortune 500 CEOs and a former First Lady. This event is going to launch you into a different stratosphere, Lauren. Don't let Matthew's drama pull you back down. After he left, I sat in my beautiful office, staring out at the city where my old life was publicly imploding. Somewhere out there, Tiffany was probably watching the same news reports, realizing her meal ticket had just expired. Matthew was sitting in a cell, his perfect image shattered forever. And me? I was planning a charity gala that would raise millions for women starting over. The irony was delicious. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Lauren, it's Tiffany. Her voice was thick with tears. I don't know who else to call. Maddie's been arrested, and these lawyers showed up with papers from Brian, and I don't know what to do. Can we talk, please? I closed my eyes. Smart Lauren would say no. Safe Lauren would hang up. But the Lauren who'd once been young and scared and married to the wrong man heard herself saying, "Come back to my office. We'll figure it out." Maybe I was getting soft. Or maybe I just understood that sometimes the best revenge wasn't watching your enemies burn, it was being the person they had to turn to when the flames got too high. Tiffany looked like a different person when she returned to my office 2 hours later. Gone was the polished mistress in designer clothes. This version wore a simple maternity dress, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her face swollen from crying. She looked exactly like what she was, a scared, pregnant 22-year-old whose world had just collapsed. "They froze all his accounts," she said without preamble. "The lawyers, the FBI, whoever, they froze everything. The credit cards don't work. The house is being seized as evidence. I have nowhere to go." I poured her a glass of water, noting how her hands shook as she took it. "Where's your family?" "Idaho, but I can't. They don't know about any of this. They think I'm working as a pharmaceutical rep, saving money for grad school." She laughed bitterly. "They definitely don't know I'm pregnant with a married man's baby while still married to someone else." "What about Brian, your actual husband?" Her face crumpled. "He served me papers today. His lawyer says if I don't sign them immediately, they'll pursue abandonment charges and I'll get nothing. But if I sign them while pregnant with another man's child—" "You get nothing anyway," I finished. She nodded miserably. "Matty always said he'd take care of everything, that I didn't need to worry about Brian or lawyers or money. He said once the baby was born, we'd be a real family." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I was so stupid. Yes, you were, I thought, but didn't say. Instead, I heard myself asking, "How far along are you?" 32 weeks. She rubbed her belly protectively. "He's been kicking all day. I think he knows something's wrong." He. Matthew's son. The child I couldn't give him, growing inside a woman who'd destroyed my marriage but was now just as lost as I'd been 3 weeks ago. My phone buzzed. Joshua texting from the conference room. "Meeting starting in 5. Where are you?" "I have to go to a meeting," I told Tiffany. "But wait here. We'll figure something out after." "Why are you being nice to me?" she asked suddenly. "I ruined your life. You should be happy about all this." I paused at the door. "I'm not being nice. I'm being practical. That baby didn't ask for any of this." The meeting was a blur. I presented the vendor contracts, discussed entertainment options, and smiled at all the right moments, but my mind kept drifting to the pregnant woman crying in my office. Joshua noticed, of course. He noticed everything. "Problem?" he asked quietly as the others filed out. "Tiffany Morrison is in my office. She has nowhere to go." His eyebrows rose. "And that's your concern because I'm not a monster. She's 32 weeks pregnant and homeless. She made her choices. She's 22 years old. She fell for an older man's lies. Sound familiar?" He studied me for a long moment. "You want to help her?" I paused, trying to articulate the complex mix of emotions. "I want to be better than Matthew. Better than all of them. Isn't that what you said? The best revenge is massive success? Well, maybe the best revenge on a man who treats women like disposable objects is to help the woman he's disposing of." Joshua leaned back in his chair, a small smile playing at his lips. "You continue to surprise me, Lauren Chen." "Is that a yes?" "That's a do what you think is right. But Lauren, be careful. Wounded animals bite even when you're trying to help them." When I returned to my office, Tiffany was curled up on my reading nook sofa, asleep. She looked impossibly young, one hand resting on her belly, the other clutching her phone like a lifeline. I stood there for a moment, remembering my own days of desperation, then made a decision that would have seemed insane a month ago. "Tiffany." I gently shook her shoulder. "Wake up. We need to talk." She startled awake, momentarily confused. "Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to fall asleep." "It's fine." I sat across from her. "Here's what's going to happen. I know a good lawyer, a real one, not one of Matthew's country club buddies. She's going to help you navigate both your divorce and the situation with Matthew. You're going to sign whatever papers Brian wants, take whatever money you have left, and start over." "But I don't have any money left, and lawyers cost, I'll cover it." She stared at me. "What? Why would you?" "Because I can. Because someone should have helped me 12 years ago when I was young and making terrible decisions. Because that baby deserves better than being born into chaos." I held up a hand before she could protest. "This isn't charity. This is an investment in karma. Someday, when you're stable and successful, you'll help another woman who needs it. Deal." Tears streamed down her face. I don't understand. I slept with your husband. I moved into your house. I sent you that awful photo from the baby store. Yes, you did all those things, and they were awful. But Matthew was the one who made vows to me, not you. He broke them long before you came along. I pulled out my phone. What's your maiden name? Parker, Tiffany Parker. Okay, Tiffany Parker, let's get you a fresh start. The next few hours were a whirlwind. I called Zara Vance, the shark lawyer Anthony had recommended, who agreed to take Tiffany's case pro bono after I promised a significant donation to her Women's Legal Aid Foundation. We found Tiffany a temporary apartment, nothing fancy, but safe and clean. I even called in a favor with a friend who ran a placement agency for medical professionals. You were a pharmaceutical rep, I told her. That's actual experience. We'll get you a real job, not one that requires flirting with married doctors. Throughout it all, Tiffany seemed stunned. This morning I thought my life was over, she said as we stood in her new apartment. Now, I don't know what to think. Think of it as a course correction, I suggested. We all need them sometimes. My phone rang. Anthony's name flashed on the screen. Have you lost your mind? He demanded without preamble. Rebecca Hartman just told me you're helping Matthew's mistress? The same woman who destroyed your marriage? It's complicated, I said, stepping onto the small balcony. No, it's not. She's the enemy, Lauren. You don't help the enemy. She's not the enemy. She's collateral damage. I watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Matthew's the enemy, and he's already lost. This is going to make you look weak. People will think, I don't care what people think. I spent 12 years caring what people think. Look where it got me. Anthony sighed. Just be careful, okay? You have a good heart, Lulu. Don't let it make you stupid. After we hung up, I found Tiffany unpacking the few belongings she'd managed to grab from Matthew's house. Among them was a framed ultrasound photo. It's a boy, she said unnecessarily. Matty was so excited. He already bought him a junior medical kit, started planning which private schools he'd attend. She trailed off. Do you think he'll want to see him? Even with everything that's happening? I thought about Matthew in his jail cell, his perfect life in ruins. Would he want to see the son he'd destroyed everything to have? Or would the baby just be another reminder of his failures? I don't know, I answered honestly. But that's not your problem to solve. Your job is to take care of yourself and your baby. Let Matthew figure out his own priorities. She nodded, then surprised me by pulling me into a fierce hug. Thank you, she whispered. I know I don't deserve this, but thank you. I hugged her back, feeling something shift inside me. The anger that had fueled me for weeks was still there, but it was changing, morphing into something more useful. Purpose, maybe, or just the simple satisfaction of being the person Matthew never thought I could be. My phone buzzed. Joshua texting, How's the rescue mission going? Successfully, I replied. Heading home now. Good. Dinner at 8? We need to discuss tomorrow's donor meeting. Dinner with Joshua had become a regular thing, always couched in business terms, but increasingly feeling like something more. I agreed and headed back to my hotel. I really needed to find a proper apartment soon. As I dressed for dinner, I thought about the strange turns my life had taken. A month ago, I'd been sobbing in a hotel room, my life in ashes. Now I was running a major charity foundation, helping my husband's pregnant mistress start over, and having dinner with a billionaire who may or may not be playing a longer game than I understood. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the jail's automated system. You have a collect call from Matthew Winters, an inmate at. I hung up without accepting. Whatever Matthew wanted to say, I didn't need to hear it. That chapter was closed, even if the legal proceedings would drag on for months. 20 minutes later, sitting across from Joshua at a restaurant so exclusive it didn't even have a sign, I raised my glass of wine. What are we toasting? He asked, raising his own. To unexpected allies, I said, thinking of Tiffany alone in her new apartment, starting over at 22 with a baby on the way. And to becoming the person your ex-husband never thought you could be. Joshua's smile was warm and genuine. I'll drink to that. As we clinked glasses, I realized something had fundamentally changed. I wasn't running from my old life anymore. I was building a new one, brick by unexpected brick. And maybe, just maybe, helping others build theirs too. 6 weeks later, the Getty Villa glowed like a jewel against the Pacific coast. Every detail of the gala had been executed flawlessly, from the string quartet playing in the gardens to the champagne fountains strategically placed throughout the venue. But I barely had time to admire my own handiwork as I rushed between tasks, my designer heels clicking against the marble floors. "Lauren, the auction display needs your approval," my assistant called out. "Lauren, Channel 5 wants an interview," the publicist added. "Lauren, there's an issue with Table 7, someone else chimed in. I took a deep breath, centered myself, and began handling each crisis with the calm efficiency I'd developed over these intense weeks. This was my night, our night. The official launch of the Phoenix Foundation, a name Joshua had suggested with a knowing smile. "Rising from the ashes," he'd said. Appropriate, don't you think? Now, watching Los Angeles's elite arrive in their designer gowns and custom tuxedos, I felt the weight of what we'd accomplished. 3 months ago, these same people had whispered about my pathetic fall from grace. Tonight, they were paying $10,000 a plate to attend my event. "You clean up nice, Chen." I turned to find Joshua approaching, and my breath caught. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo that emphasized his lean frame, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. But it was his eyes that made my pulse race warm with pride, and something else I didn't dare name. "You're not so bad yourself, Blackstone," I managed. He offered his arm. "Shall we greet our guests? I believe the mayor just arrived." The next hour was a blur of air kisses, firm handshakes, and strategic small talk. Everyone who mattered in Los Angeles was there, plus a surprising number of out-of-town heavy hitters. Joshua worked the room like a master conductor, guiding conversations, making introductions, and somehow always appearing at my elbow when I needed support. Then I saw her. Rebecca Hartman swept in wearing a gown that probably cost more than most people's cars, her surgeon's dream face animated with excitement. But it wasn't Rebecca who made me freeze, it was her companion. Tiffany Parker, née Morrison, looked radiant in a simple navy dress that accommodated her now massive baby bump. Her hair was its natural brown, styled in an elegant updo. She looked nervous but determined. "Lauren!" Rebecca called out, dragging Tiffany forward. "You remember Tiffany, don't you? I've taken her under my wing. The poor dear's been through so much. What with that awful business with Matthew? When I heard about your foundation helping women start over, I simply had to bring her." I met Tiffany's eyes, seeing the question there. We'd barely spoken since I'd helped her get settled. I'd been too busy with the gala, and she'd been focused on her new job and impending motherhood. "Of course," I said smoothly. "Welcome, Tiffany. How are you feeling?" "Like a whale," she admitted with a small laugh. "But grateful. Very, very grateful." Rebecca leaned in conspiratorially. "She's been telling me how kind you've been, helping her even after. Well, it's positively saintly of you, darling." "Not saintly," I corrected. "Just practical. Women need to support each other, especially when men let us down." "Here, here." Rebecca raised her champagne glass. "Speaking of men letting us down, did you hear? Matthew's trial has been postponed again. His lawyers are scrambling, apparently. Word is he might take a plea deal." I kept my expression neutral. "I hadn't heard." "Oh, yes. 20 years, possibly. Can you imagine? Dr. Matthew Winters in Prison Orange?" She shuddered delicately. "Though I suppose it's better than those ghastly Hawaiian shirts he wore on vacation." Before I could respond, the lights dimmed slightly, the signal for dinner service to begin. I excused myself to check on the kitchen, but Tiffany followed. "Lauren, wait." She caught my arm. "I need to tell you something." "Can it wait? I really need to. I'm having the baby tonight." I stared at her. "What?" "I've been having contractions all day. I didn't want to miss this, to miss supporting you after everything you've done." She winced, hand going to her belly. "But I think Junior has other plans." "You're in labor at my gala?" I didn't know whether to laugh or panic. "My water hasn't broken yet," she said, as if that made it better. "I just wanted you to know, in case I have to leave suddenly. And I wanted to ask, I know it's crazy, but would you consider being his godmother?" The world seemed to stop. Tiffany, I know it's insane, but you saved us, both of us. Both. And I don't want him growing up not knowing the woman who made his life possible, the woman who showed his mother how to be better. I felt tears prick my eyes and blinked them back furiously. This was not the time for waterproof mascara to be tested. We'll talk about it later, I said. Right now, you need to sit down. I'll have the valet bring your car around. Actually, a deep voice interrupted, I'll drive her. We both turned to find a man I didn't recognize, tall, mid-30s, with kind eyes and the slightly rumpled look of someone who worked too many hours. Brian? Tiffany gasped. Her ex-husband. I tensed, ready to call security, but he held up his hands peacefully. I'm not here to cause trouble. Rebecca mentioned you'd be here, and I wanted to see how you were. His eyes dropped to her belly. And to apologize for a lot of things. The divorce is final, Tiffany said quietly. You got what you wanted. I got what I thought I wanted, he corrected. Then I spent the last 2 months realizing what an idiot I'd been. Tiff, I know I have no right to ask, but can we talk? Maybe after you have the baby? Another contraction hit her, and she grabbed both our arms. How about we talk on the way to the hospital? 10 minutes later, I watched Brian's sensible Honda disappear into the night, carrying his ex-wife to deliver another man's baby. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Everything all right? Joshua appeared at my side. Tiffany's in labor. Her ex-husband is driving her to the hospital, and she asked me to be the baby's godmother. He was quiet for a moment. What did you say? Nothing yet. I turned to face him. Is this all crazy? Am I crazy? 3 months ago, she was my enemy. Now she's a reminder that we're all just trying to survive, he finished. That even the villains in our story might just be scared kids making bad choices. When did you become so philosophical? When I started spending time with a woman who helps her husband's pregnant mistress instead of destroying her. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture achingly tender. You're remarkable, you know that? Joshua. I started, but he shook his head. Later. Right now you have 500 guests to dazzle, and a speech to give that's going to bring them all to tears. He offered his arm again. Shall we? The rest of the evening passed in a glorious blur. My speech about second chances and female empowerment earned a standing ovation. The auction raised 3 times our projected amount. And when the formal program ended, the real party began, inhibitions loosened by champagne and success. I was taking a moment on the terrace, finally able to breathe, when my phone buzzed. A photo from an unknown number. Tiffany in a hospital bed, holding a tiny bundle, Brian sitting beside her with a shell-shocked expression. The message read, Henry Brian Parker, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, perfect and healthy. Thank you for everything, godmother. T. Henry. Not Matthew, not anything connecting him to the man who'd fathered him. A fresh start, even in his name. Good news? Joshua asked, joining me on the terrace. I showed him the photo. It's a boy, Henry, and the ex-husband, apparently sticking around. I put my phone away. You were right, you know, that night at the beach. A chapter ended, but the story kept going, just not how any of us expected. The best stories never go how we expect. He moved closer, and I caught his scent, expensive cologne mixed with something uniquely him. Lauren, I need to tell you something. My heart hammered. If you're about to confess you orchestrated this entire thing just to destroy Matthew, I already figured that out. No, well, yes, partly. But that stopped being the main reason weeks ago. He took my hands, his thumbs tracing circles on my palms. I've closed billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. I've destroyed companies and built empires. But watching you these past months, your grace, your strength, your insane decision to help Tiffany, you've completely upended my world. Joshua, I'm falling in love with you, he said simply. No games, no strategy, just truth. And I think you feel it too. I looked at this complicated, brilliant man who'd entered my life at its lowest point and helped me rebuild it into something extraordinary, who'd supported my crazy decisions and challenged me to be more than I ever thought possible. I do, I whispered. God help me, I do. He kissed me then, right there on the terrace with the Pacific Ocean as our witness and the sounds of our successful gala floating on the breeze. It wasn't our first kiss that had been weeks ago, after a particularly intense planning session, but it was the first one that felt like a beginning instead of a question. When we finally broke apart, I saw several party guests hastily looking away. By tomorrow, all of Los Angeles would know that Lauren Chen and Joshua Blackstone were officially an item. Good. Let them talk. I should get back to the party, I said reluctantly. In a moment. He pulled out his phone and showed me a news alert. Matthew Winters accepts plea deal. 15 years in federal prison. 15 years. By the time he got out, Henry would be in high school. The Phoenix Foundation would be a major force in Los Angeles, and I would be living a life he could never have imagined for me. How do you feel? Joshua asked, studying my face. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Free, I said finally. Completely free. Good. He kissed me again, quick but thorough. Now let's get back to your party. I believe the mayor wants to discuss making you a city commissioner. As we walked back into the light and noise and celebration, I marveled at the journey that had brought me here. From discarded wife to charity director to the woman on Joshua Blackstone's arm, and more importantly, the woman I'd finally become on my own terms. The party went until nearly 2 in the morning. As the last guest departed and the cleaning crew moved in, I stood in the emptying villa, exhausted but exhilarated. We did it, I said to Joshua, who'd stayed to the very end. You did it, he corrected. I just provided the platform. You built everything else. My phone buzzed one last time. Another message from Tiffany. Brian's staying. We're going to try again, slowly, carefully, but we're going to try. None of this would have happened without you. Henry's lucky to have you in his life. We all are. I smiled, thinking of new beginnings and second chances, and the strange ways life circles back on itself. Ready to go home? Joshua asked. Home, my new apartment in the same building as his, close enough to be convenient but separate enough to maintain our independence. We were taking things slowly, building something real on the ashes of our past relationships. Yeah, I said, linking my arm through his. Let's go home. As we walked out into the California night, I couldn't help but laugh. Matthew had been right about one thing. I had ended up with nothing. Nothing of the life he'd built for me anyway. Instead, I'd built something entirely my own, and it was extraordinary. 1 year after signing my divorce papers, I sat in Zara's office again, this time signing papers to become Henry's legal godmother. Brian and Tiffany had remarried 6 months ago, their second chance built on honesty and shared love for a boy who bore no resemblance to his biological father. The Phoenix Foundation restructuring is also complete, Zara added. You're now Joshua's full partner, not just an employee. Joshua had insisted despite my protests. You built this. You should own it. My phone buzzed. Rebecca Hartman's voice was breathless. Matthew's getting out early. Good behavior. Only served 2 years. The floor tilted. Matthew, free. Joshua arrived within minutes, striding into Zara's office like corporate vengeance in Tom Ford. He can't hurt you. He has no power, no money, no license, no reputation. He's nothing. That evening, at a charity fundraiser, I saw him. Prison had ravaged Matthew thinner, grayer, wearing an ill-fitting rental suit. When our eyes met, I waited for the familiar anxiety. Nothing. I felt absolutely nothing. He approached, but Joshua intercepted. I wasn't aware convicted felons were on the guest list. I want to talk to my wife, Matthew said desperately. Ex-wife, I corrected, stepping forward. Hello, Matthew. He stared at the changes, my designer dress, confident posture, diamonds. Olivia, you look different. It's Lauren. And yes, freedom suits me. I heard about your little charity. He attempted his old condescending tone. Playing businesswoman? Running a multi-million-dollar foundation, actually. Expanding nationally. I made her, Matthew snarled at Joshua. Everything she has is because of me. No, I said quietly. Everything I lost was because of you. Everything I have now I built myself. When we tried to leave, Matthew grabbed my arm. Please, I need help. I'm in a halfway house. You helped Tiffany, why not me? Because Tiffany was your victim. You're the manipulator. I straightened my dress. She carried an innocent child. You're just facing consequences. You've become cold, he accused. No, I've become strong. There's a difference. We left him standing alone. At our table, Joshua raised his champagne. To close chapters. To freedom, I countered. Throughout the evening, I noticed the shifted dynamics. Former friends who'd shunned me now sought my attention. The social hierarchy had completely flipped. Later, Matthew cornered me outside the ladies' room, begging for 2 minutes. He admitted destroying everything for a fantasy, but I cut him off. There's no second chance, Matthew. No us. Build something new if you can, but away from me. As we drove home, I felt the last chains fall away. My phone buzzed Tiffany asking about Sunday dinner. Henry misses his Aunt Lauren. Of course, I typed back. Family, not the one I'd planned, but the one I'd found. Built from broken pieces and women helping women. Happy? Joshua asked. Completely, I said. And for the first time, it was entirely true. 5 years had passed since Matthew threw me out. Now I stood before 2,000 women at the Phoenix Foundation's annual summit, my voice strong and clear. 5 years ago, I was told I was nothing, would always be nothing. He was wrong. The applause was thunderous. Backstage, Sarah handed me my phone. Matthew's been arrested again. Medicare fraud. In the green room, Joshua pulled me into his arms. You were incredible out there. There's more, he said. Tiffany wants us to take Henry for the summer. My godson, the child born from betrayal who'd become one of my greatest joys. Rebecca Hartman swept in with gossip. Matthew's been calling the foundation 17 times this month. And there's this. She showed me his Facebook post. My blood ran cold. He claimed to have information about my parents' accident 7 years ago. They died in a car crash, ruled driver error. But Matthew wanted to meet, said there were things I didn't know. It's manipulation, Joshua said immediately. But that night I couldn't stop thinking about my parents, about Matthew's strange behavior before their accident. At 3 a.m., I pulled out their accident files, searching for answers that weren't there. The next day, Matthew's sister Grace found me at the summit. Whatever he's claiming about your parents, it's lies. But there is something you should know. She showed me bank statements. Matthew had borrowed $50,000 from my parents 2 weeks before their death. Gambling debts. He'd paid it back the day after their funeral with their life insurance money. He benefited from their death, Grace said simply. 3 weeks later, the private investigator Joshua hired delivered the truth. Matthew had been embezzling even then. My parents discovered it, threatened to tell me. They'd driven to their cabin to decide what to do, distracted by the devastating knowledge that their son-in-law was a criminal. They never made it. Matthew hadn't killed them, but his actions put them on that road in that state of mind. He'd known his crimes contributed to their death and let me carry the guilt for years. I burned the report and had Sarah draft a cease and desist letter. It was over. That afternoon, Henry burst into my office. Aunt Lauren, I lost a tooth! Watching Joshua play with him on the floor, I felt my heart expand. This unconventional family born from ashes was perfect. That evening, the news came. Matthew Winters pleads guilty, faces 25 years in prison. It's finished, Joshua said. Yes, I agreed. It's finished. The man who'd tried to diminish me would spend decades in a cell. Meanwhile, I'd continue building, growing, rising. Outside, Los Angeles glittered with possibilities. The girl who'd been told she was nothing had become everything she was meant to be. And this Phoenix? She was just getting started.